Hi, this is Jerry Ludlow. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting Pinmill in watercolour. Now Pinmill is a favourite place to paint for English artists. It has everything you want from traditional English art. There's big skies, boats, and it also has a very nice pub. I'm putting in a low horizon line so that I can get a nice large sky painting. Now I'm drawing a sailing barge, which is a traditional barge. These used to haul cargo up and down the coast, and there used to be hundreds of them, but there's only a few left now. Quite a nice boat to paint with their red sails. Not putting in too much detail here. Very lightly putting in the background, hills. And also I'm penciling in a few sailboats, which on this occasion I will paint round. Sometimes I use white gouache to pop the sails in, but as it's quite a simple painting, I'll cut round them. Just make sure the tape's down properly before I start painting. These are the colours on my palette, starting lower left, sepia, Payne's grey, French ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, cobalt turquoise, neutral tint, light red, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, quinacridone gold, hooker's green, sap green, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, opera rose, cadmium red, jaune brilliant, lavender. I also use white and white gouache. Starting with the sky, I'm going to be mixing some large puddles of colours. Here I'm mixing cobalt blue and cobalt turquoise. Making sure I've got plenty of paint. There's quite a large area I'm going to be painting. Next I'm going to be mixing raw sienna, very watery. I'm using a small mop and a medium mop, and I'm just going to wet in some of the areas where in my mind the blue will meet the raw sienna in the sky. Very random. I'm also going to be using a very small amount of alizarin crimson, lots of water with this, and cobalt blue for on the horizon. Now starting to put in the blue sky shapes. Trying not to fiddle. Now putting in the raw sienna, just touching the edges of the blue here and there. I don't want this to be all wet in wet. I want some white edges. Letting the paint run down the paper. Putting a little bit of water into the blue mixture to make it lighter as they come down towards the horizon. Not worried about the sails and on the boat, just go straight over that. They'll be dark. And then with a small round brush, putting in the alizarin crimson cobalt blue mix very quickly. Also going over the hills and the horizon as they're going to be dark. It saves having a line where you stop painting. And then getting some blue mixture, putting that into the crimson mix so that merges. Now I'm mixing some burnt sienna into the raw sienna mixture to very quickly put the foreground in. Going to leave an area where in the center there for what's going to be some puddles, just to break it up because it's quite a large area. Going around the boats. Just wiping away some paint there, as I'll be putting some watercolour in there. Just blurring some of the sky with a tissue. So very quickly put that first coat on, the first wash. Now I have let it dry, and I'm now doing the background hills, being mindful of where the sails are on the white sailboats in the distance. As I said, you could do this with white gouache, but on this occasion I'll paint round them. This is a mixture of alizarin crimson and Payne's grey into the blue mixture that was already there on the palette. This will dry out quite nicely, and with these cold colours it will recede. Just putting in the water at the back there with the blue mixture. Not going to see much water in this painting. Now moving on to the sails of the boat, giving the foreground a chance to dry. This is done in red, light red. And just varying it a little by putting some burnt sienna in with the light red mix. Otherwise it can start to look a bit like paint by numbers. The whole centre of attention of this painting is on the horizon with the three boats there. Now I'm painting the hull of the larger boat with French ultramarine, which will dry much lighter. I'm leaving a very slight line at the top, which I'll be bringing in with another colour, red, and then I'm putting some water in the mixture just to break up that large area of blue. Now doing the second boat with Payne's grey. And there's a small boat in between them two, which is going to be done in, I'm going to be painting it in raw sienna. So we've got some contrast there. We've got the dark, the lighter, and the dark, excuse me. Now the background has dried, those hills. I'm going to be painting them again with the same mixture, which is alizarin crimson and the blues that are on the palette. See how the sails really show now that it's got that dark colour behind them. And I've let all that dry, and I'm using a putty rubber to remove the pencil marks. I've left an area in front of the large boat because I'm going to be keeping that to put a smaller boat in there, which will break up that large expanse of blue, make it more interesting. Just putting another wash on the hull of the large boat in the same colour I did before, French ultramarine, leaving a very tiny gap at the top. Cutting around that little white boat carefully. I'm using a medium round brush for most of this fine work. This is a synthetic. There's a nice point on it. Just putting some dark paint at the bases of the boats, which are going to merge into the foreground colour in a minute. Mixing some nice earthy sandy colours, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna. Going over the first wash quite quickly. And then using some of the blue mixture to darken the foreground, like there's some cloud shadows or something, just to make it look a bit more interesting with the different colours. I've left that area in the centre, which I'm going to be putting some sky colours on next. Some raw sienna. Once again, I've let that dry. Now using a rigger brush, which has a very fine point on it, and is used for many things, but this is what its main purpose is, for painting rigging ropes on boats, all the lines and pulleys and things. Just putting in some broken lines, which always look better than straight lines. Just just straight thick lines. Give the appearance of light bouncing on the ropes. These have quite a few ropes going up. The sails are huge when they're opened up, and putting in a little flag at the top. And some things on the which would be on the deck of the boat. And doing the masts of the other boats. There are some more. There is another mast to go on the large boat, but I'll be doing that in a minute. I'm using some cadmium yellow and raw sienna to put in this small boat that's in front of the other boat. It's look quite effective. This light boat against the dark boat. And I'm using cadmium red along the top of the hull of the boat, which is why I left the white there. And with that same colour, I'm going to put a small boat in here just to add some interest to the left hand side of the painting. Put a little mast on there. And doing the hulls of the sailing boats that are in the distance. Still using the dark colour, which is Payne's grey, for doing the rigging. There's quite a few ropes and things coming down from the mast on these large boats. Very nice subject to paint these. I've decided to put a tree just to the right of the boat, using some ready-made green, Hooker's green, with some burnt sienna. I thought we just needed something else on that horizon line. Now going around the area where there's some water in the foreground. Just using some of the darker colours on the palette. Now using burnt sienna to put another wash, darken up the beach. And using some of the darker blue as shadow colour. Not completely covering it, just adding some bits, leaving some bits there. That's the painting almost completed now. Just going to put the final bits of rigging on. I have let this dry so I can put my hand on the paper to do these last bits. There's some rigging and some ropes that I'm going to put in. Putting some boards on that small boat. And putting in some dark at the base of the boats, which would be in dark shadow. And I'm using white gouache now for putting in some ropes at the front of the boat, just to break up that large expanse of blue, add some interest to it. Have to be careful with the gouache because it can be quite addictive, putting in bits and pieces with it. Should just try to keep it to a bare minimum really. But it does look nice for some sparkly bits on the darker areas. I'm going to be doing something with the foreground. It just needs a little something else there. I've let that dry, what I've just done on the boat, and I should be covering it and doing what's called spatter on the foreground. So just using some raw umber on the brush, just tapping it on. Just a small amount. And I've covered the rest up because sometimes with me doing it, it goes everywhere. Removing the masking tape, which leaves a nice white edge, frames the painting. And there's pinwheel in watercolour. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe.